The Galactic Military Academy's training ground fell silent as Cadet Elena Vasquez stepped into the combat arena. Around the elevated platform, hundreds of alien cadets from dozens of species leaned forward in their seats, chittering and growling with barely contained amusement. The human stood barely 5.5 feet tall, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her compact frame dwarfed by the towering figures surrounding the arena. "Look at that little thing," hissed Zektar, a 7-foot-tall reptilian whose scales gleamed like polished emeralds. His forked tongue flicked out in what passed for laughter among his kind. "She's so small I could step on her by accident." The Arcturian sitting beside him, a being of crystalline structure and pure energy, pulsed with colors that indicated deep skepticism. Humans have been in the Galactic Alliance for barely 50 cycles. What could they possibly know about real combat? Across the arena, Elena's opponent was making his entrance. Gorath the Crusher, champion of the Corvani Empire, stood 9 feet of pure muscle and chitinous armor. His forearms ended in claws that could shred through titanium, and his mandibles clicked with predatory anticipation. For 3 years running, he had dominated the Academy's combat trials, earning his species tremendous prestige and several lucrative military contracts. "This is almost cruel," muttered a Centaurian cadet, his horse-like features twisted with what might have been sympathy. "They should have paired her with someone from a more appropriate weight class." The arena's holographic announcer, a shimmering blue construct, boomed across the amphitheater. "Combat Trial 847. Gorath the Crusher of the Corvani Empire versus Cadet Elena Vasquez of the Terran Federation. Standard rules apply. Victory by submission, incapacitation, or knockout. Combatants, take your positions." Elena walked to her mark with measured steps, her breathing steady and controlled. She wore the standard Academy combat suit, a form-fitting outfit that provided minimal protection but maximum mobility. No weapons, no armor enhancements, just flesh and bone against the galaxy's most feared warrior race champion. Gorath bounded to his position, his claws scraping against the arena floor with metallic shrieks. He towered over Elena, casting a shadow that engulfed her entirely. The crowd's laughter grew louder, punctuated by betting pools rapidly forming among the spectators. The odds against the human were astronomical. "Poor little mammal," Gorath's translator rendered his guttural speech into standard galactic. "I will try to make this quick. Perhaps you should have chosen the sciences track instead of combat training." Elena looked up at him, her brown eyes calm and focused. "Perhaps," she replied quietly, "you should have studied more human history." The holographic referee raised its arm. "Combatants ready? Begin!" Gorath lunged forward with the speed of a striking viper, all forearms extending to envelop his tiny opponent in a crushing embrace. It was his signature move, the destroyer's grasp that had ended dozens of fights in seconds. His claws sliced through the air where Elena had been standing. But she wasn't there anymore. In the split second between the referee's command and Gorath's lunge, Elena had moved. Not backward, not to the side, but forward and down, sliding between the champion's legs with liquid grace. As she passed beneath him, her right hand shot up, fingers extended and rigid as steel. The strike caught Gorath exactly where his chitinous armor plates met at the back of his knee, a weak point most species didn't even know existed. The precisely applied force, concentrated into a single fingertip, sent shock waves through his nervous system. Gorath's right leg buckled. His massive frame, committed to the forward lunge, began to topple. But Elena wasn't finished. As she completed her slide, she planted her left foot and spun, her right leg sweeping in a perfect arc that caught Gorath's remaining good leg at exactly the moment his weight shifted onto it. The champion of the Corvani Empire, undefeated for 3 years, crashed to the arena floor with a thunderous impact that shook the entire amphitheater. Before he could recover, Elena was on him, her arm snaking around his thick neck in a position that looked almost gentle until Gorath tried to move and realized he couldn't. The human had found the precise pressure point where his circulatory system was most vulnerable. Not enough pressure to cause permanent damage, but perfectly calibrated to cut off blood flow to his brain. Gorath's 4 arms flailed desperately, but Elena's position gave him no leverage to dislodge her. Within seconds, his movements grew sluggish. "Submission or unconsciousness," Elena said quietly, her voice carrying clearly in the now silent arena. "Your choice." Gorath's pride warred with his survival instinct for exactly 3 more seconds before he tapped the arena floor with his upper right claw. The universal signal of surrender. Elena released him immediately, rolling away and standing in one fluid motion. Gorath gasped and wheezed, his massive frame shuddering as blood flow returned to his brain. The entire fight had lasted 12 seconds. The amphitheater was tomb quiet. Hundreds of aliens stared in complete shock at the small human who stood calmly in the center of the arena, not even breathing heavily. Finally, the holographic announcer found its voice. Winner, Cadet Elena Vasquez of the Terran Federation. Slowly, Gorath pushed himself to his feet, still unsteady but recovering quickly. He looked down at Elena with new respect, his mandibles clicking in what his species considered a gesture of honor. How? He asked simply. Elena smiled, not with triumph but with the quiet satisfaction of a teacher watching a student grasp an important concept. On Earth we have a saying like the bigger they are, the harder they fall, but that's not the real lesson here. She gestured to the stunned crowd around them. Every species in this galaxy became dominant through strength, speed, or size. Humans became dominant through something else entirely. We learned to think. We studied our enemies, found their weaknesses, and adapted. We turned disadvantages into advantages. She looked around the arena, meeting the eyes of aliens who would never again underestimate the small mammals from Sol 3. You all saw a small, weak human facing an impossible opponent. I saw leverage points, timing windows, and anatomical vulnerabilities. That's what makes humanity dangerous, not our strength, but our refusal to fight fair when survival is at stake. As Elena walked toward the exit, the amphitheater gradually came alive with excited chatter in dozens of alien languages, but now the tone was different. Now they spoke with respect, with curiosity, and, for the first time since humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance, with just a touch of fear. Behind her, Gorath the Crusher watched the small human disappear through the exit tunnel, and he smiled a predator's smile. Tomorrow he would begin studying human combat techniques. After all, if you can't beat them, learn from them. The age of human military doctrine in the galaxy had just begun.